Hey, best friend. Today, you and I are going to talk about a powerful force that lies within each of us: resilience. I know that life can throw challenges your way. It's thrown many my direction. But what exists within all of us is this innate capacity to adapt, to heal, and to grow stronger. Today, you and I are going to jump in to talk about what resilience truly means, how we recognize it, cultivate it, and I'm going to talk to you about some of Dr. Eileen Russell's work that will help you tap into your own inner strength. Here's the truth, friend. I am no stranger to adversity. I could really give you blips of time in my life, from dealing with mean girl stuff in high school to infertility to my husband going outside of our marriage to all of these things. Yeah, I just snuck that one in. And by the way, I am going to do a podcast on that if you're like, oh, stay tuned. Yeah, I am no stranger to adversity. And I have had to find resources within myself. And honestly, I look back at many of the struggles that I faced. I think about infertility and I just go, man, I would never have realized the force, the strength, the capability that existed within me if I had never faced those things. And maybe you're like, yeah, Dr. Britt, totally get that. I can connect with that. Or maybe you're like, man, that sounds really nice. I wish that I felt that way. I'd like to. Well, if you want to grow in your resilient capacity, I want you to stay tuned. I want you to stay with me, because you and I are going to talk about some of the challenges that you're facing, and maybe you're seeking ways to navigate them with strength and grace. You're going to be able to apply this podcast to them. Maybe you do a pretty solid job of standing in resilience, and yet you want to understand how to access and enhance the resilience that's already within you. Today, we're just going to chat about some of those insights. I'm going to give you some tools to help you recognize and cultivate that internal innate resilience and help empower you to face life's adversities with confidence. You want that, right? And by the way, if you don't, we're probably not besties, because that would be your cue. You'd be turning off this podcast right now. So I am betting that you want to be able to feel empowered when you face life's adversities with confidence. So let's start talking about what resilience is. Let's define it. Resilience is this innate, which means it exists within us, capacity to adapt, recover, and grow stronger in the face of adversity. And by the way, this is a universal human trait, meaning we all have access to it. It's not, well, some of us have it and other of us don't have it. It exists for everyone. All right. Now, I mentioned Dr. Eileen Russell, and she says that resilience is the self's differentiation, so separation. We recognize that there's a difference, so the self's differentiation from that which is aversive to it. So we're just recognizing that we're separate. This is not, by the way, never feeling broken. It's a moving when we feel like we cannot, taking action when we feel like we cannot. Another, which I don't know who that other is, but another definition I've seen for resilience is a tensile quality of light and hope, deep in a person's being, which may flicker or even for a time be extinguished, but has the capacity to be rekindled if external conditions are supportive. So, said differently, it's this light, this hope that exists within us, deep in our being. And sometimes this resilience is just barely flickering or feels like it is totally gone. But it can be rekindled, it can be relit if we can get the conditions to be right. You know, what's interesting, friend, by the way, is resilient people experience the same amount of negative emotions as other people. They are no different. What is different about people who are resilient is that they have more access to positive emotions. So I want to say that again. Resilient people have the same amount of negative emotions as anybody else. You feel me? Same amount as anyone else. They just have access. They grab onto those positive emotions more than those who struggle with resilience. I love, again, Eileen Russell, her book on resilience is amazing. It's honestly written for clinicians, not that your everyday person couldn't really find value in it. And so I'm gonna like take her concepts and really talk about them for the everyday person like me and you. Resilience, I want you to hear me. It is not static, meaning not moving, but it's dynamic. It changes, it's cultivated. We can restore it. So if it feels lost, it's not gone forever. And if you're like, man, I really want to grow it, guess what? You can. There is this thing that she talks about where really we grow through adversity. We tap into these resources within ourselves to become a stronger, more adaptive self. So there's these two different parts of resilience. There's resilience potential and resilient capacity. So stay with me, I'm going to define these. Resilient potential is the inherent ability that all individuals have to respond to challenges. It is a universal human quality. We all have resilience potential. Obviously, my brain just went to the fact that, I dated potential previously. This is best friend. This is where my brain goes. I'm like, yeah, I once dated potential. I probably should not. Not that I'm not dating, I'm married. But like, one should not date potential, should we? And so just recognizing that this is a different type of potential. I'm just telling you my silly brain. Resilient potential. Then we have resilient capacity, which is how well a person can access their resilience potential in the face of stress or adversity. Things like environment, relationships, your personal history, the kind of family that you grew up in, support system. You want to think about if you're, if my fist, if you're watching me, is resilience. My other hand on top of it is the lid. This is the capacity of our resilience. Think about resilient capacity as the lid on our adaptability to adverse circumstances. That's our capacity. So we all have potential, but what we want to learn to do is expand our capacity. You with me? I'm going to tell you how to do that in just a second. In just a second, I'm going to tell you how to do that. I want to tell you a little bit more about resilience. Resilience is interpersonal, meaning it's going on inside me. It's contextual, meaning sometimes we are more resilient in some areas than others. Maybe you are more resilient in your career than you are in your home life. It's also developmental. The more the self grows, the more the capacity to be and have resilience comes online. So the more that we grow ourselves, the more we have the capacity to be resilient. Isn't that such a picture of why it is so important that we prioritize personal growth and development? that we grow ourselves, that we expand our ability to feel and connect with emotion. It's fascinating because research actually talks about how resilience is not this rare quality, but it's honestly very common and arises from normal adaptive processes. Research shows us that resilience is developed through positive relationships, self-regulation, and a sense of purpose. Isn't that amazing? So Eileen Russell talks about how important it is to shift focus from problems and deficiencies to what is already working in your life, to build from your successes and existing capacities rather than being overwhelmed by struggle. This is sometimes the problem with, depending on the kind of counselor that you see, the kind of advice that you get, whoever you talk to, that sometimes we work with the wrong voices. We submit ourselves to the wrong place. What I mean by that is, if you're only focused on the problems and what's not working, well, then that's what your eyes see. That's where your vision goes. If you're totally focused on the struggle rather than looking at areas in your life where you have already had success, where you can build from those capacities, those capabilities, then you end up directing the focus away from resilience towards the problem. So let's talk about how you can build resilience, how you can get that resilient capacity to come online more. Well, first of all, you have to self reflect. You actually have to allow your mind the space to take in this information, and by this information, I mean what's happening internally, what your thoughts are thinking, what your emotions are feeling. You have to really reflect on your life, and it is so helpful to actually look at past experiences where you did experience resilience, where you overcame something. I look back and I think about my birth with Bowden, for example. That wasn't a simple birth. And I go, man, if I can do that, the next one's gonna be gravy. If I can do that, I can do this. That's building on adversity. That's building on where I accessed my own internal resilience and said, all right, if I can do that, I can do this. And while labor and birth is not something that I'm experiencing in everyday life, it is a picture that I can do hard things just like you. You can do hard things. You can really build on your own resilient capacity. So let's talk about some strategies really for how to do this. First, you have to, friend, have a support system. We have to have this place in our life that we can create safety, that we can create trust. Because when we have that, it allows us to be honest, to be authentic, to be vulnerable. And when we do those things, when we expose the challenges that we have, we can also, with good guidance, maximize and focus on our strengths. Your support system is one of the biggest antidotes, the biggest defense systems to mental illness, to, like, I even think about postpartum depression, for example. That's just what came to my mind. That your support system is actually one of the biggest fighters of experiencing postpartum depression. Isn't that amazing? That we need to have a support system where we can have safety and trust. Next, this is something that you can do for yourself is you need to focus on the resources that you have, on the capabilities that exist within you, because you have them. Now, if you are in a place where you are really, really struggling to see the good that exists within you, the capabilities that you have, your internal resources, it's time to get an outside perspective. You need to probably have a counselor, a coach, a really great friend, a mentor, a someone in your life, bestie, that is going, hey, but this is in you, and this is in you. And then that's when you start to journal, and you start to journal about how this is in me, and this is in me, and I see this, and this showed up today. Because the more that you focus on something, the more it grows. The more that you are looking for where you are resourced, where you are capable, where you can do it, it comes online more. This is neurobiology. This is cognitive psychology. This is researched for decades and decades. What I'm saying to you is not something that I'm just making up myself. What I'm saying to you is you can do it. You just have to access it. Now, there's another thing that's a part of this, that it's not just our thoughts, because bringing emotion into play is essential to action. That's why there are things like, I have these cool tools. One of them is called anchoring, that you anchor in feelings to the body, very good feelings. You anchor them. That way you can access those feelings, because those feelings move you to action. This is research based. So, it's why when people are like, oh, I don't want to go work out, that their emotion that's connected with that is dread, or blah. That's not really an emotion, but that's kind of what I think about, is like blah. They just meh. So then you don't go do it. But if you can engage positive emotion, feel it in your body, be aware of it. That's why when you think back to those times where you were resilient, where you did bring that capacity online, maybe you grew it, maybe you grew that capacity. When you can tap back into that, there's an emotional remembering. When you bring that emotional remembering into the present, guess what you do? You help you take action. You need, friend, to be mindful. By being mindful, that's just truly being present, being focused on your senses, going back to those times, really grounding your breathing, connecting into your core self, who God created you to be, really breathing into that, getting that confidence, that strength to come online. And then you go, you know what? I can face it. I can face whatever it is, because it exists within me. And I'm no unicorn, bestie. I am no unicorn. What exists in me exists in you, because resilience is universal. You may be going, man, I don't know if I can do this. You can do it. You've already done it. I am willing to bet that if you looked at your history, even if it isn't this big, massive thing, if you looked in your history, there's a time that you overcame. That's resilience. There's a time when you faced adversity, even if it was back in high school, even if it was playing a sport, even if it was whatever. You're like, man, we were down, or I was in a negative headspace and I don't know what I did, but somehow I dug down and I pulled it out. Yeah, you tapped into an emotional resource within you that said, I can be more. I'm made for more. We have to be willing to face vulnerability. I always say that the bravest thing that we will ever do is look in the mirror and face the person on the other side. We have to be willing to face, to accept and integrate conflicting emotions. Because I don't know if you know this, but you can grieve and have gratitude at the same time. I think of my fertility journey so much, where I would grieve. I'd go to baby showers. I'd throw baby showers, and I would feel so grateful for my friend, for the friendship that we have, for this beautiful baby coming into the world, because I honestly believe babies are a miracle. And so I would have this extreme gratitude on one hand, and then on the other, I would have grief. I would have grief for myself, grief that I'm not having a baby shower, that there's no baby shower in sight. You have to be willing to hold the complexity of those things and not make one bad. My grief wasn't bad, it just was. So we have to be willing to be vulnerable. And by the way, again, I come back to the best way to tap into vulnerability is with another. This is why we need support. This is why we need a support system, besties, professionals. We need those people to really face and embrace vulnerability. And sometimes, by the way, again, I come back to research that we can think that, oh, I'm just neutral on it. No, you're not. And neutral is a way to avoid vulnerability. I'm just neutral. Okay. Probably not. You're probably not neutral on whatever it is. And sometimes neutral is an avoidance strategy. Now, I'm not talking about not being tied to the outcome. You can be neutral. Maybe it's beneficial, maybe it's not. But I'm just talking about facing vulnerability. That as we face vulnerability, as we are psychologically flexible, that we have these two separate things at the same time. We are resilient. We are building that resilient capacity. Curiosity is a huge, and you've heard me talk about this because I'm so big on it. Curiosity fosters resilience because it's not a closed mindset. It's not fixed. It's like, all right, well, what else could be there? Is this the only possible outcome? Is the only possible outcome negative? No, it's not. Now, it might not always look the way that you or I want it to look because, frankly, my life has rarely gone the way that I thought that it would look. And I can reflect back on my life and go, and it's full of so many wonderful things. Now, I'll play this game. I feel like I'm about to sneeze. I play this game. It's a state change game. And it is internally, it's when I'm feeling negative, like, cool, how fast can I go from negative to positive? I set a timer on my watch, because I walk around with this smartwatch all the time, or you have your smartphone. It's like, how fast can I get from negative to positive? And I make it fun and playful. And fun and playful, by the way, is another tool that brings on resilience. If you can play in the face of adversity, if you can play in the face of something that doesn't feel good, what you do is you turn on your ability to be resilient, because you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get positive. I'm going to listen to a song. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to dance around the house. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be positive. I have saved videos on my Instagram. I have a folder, and it is videos that, like, when I watch them, I laugh so hard I cry. That's a great way to get my state from negative to positive. Play the game. Play the game. It's a good game to play. There are other games, no knows. But that game, state game change, state change game, state game change, state change game. There we go. That's the game to play. You have to reframe adversity. Friend, you have to do it. You can see things in your life, challenges, and if you label them as insurmountable, as you can never do it, that it's not possible, well, guess what? It will be that. But if you can look at something that maybe you would formally have said, I could never get past this obstacle, and you go, I wonder how I could get over that. I wonder what I would need to do. I wonder what it would take for me to get over this obstacle, to have a better marriage, to create more money, to be more chill with my children, whatever it is. What would I have to do in order to have that? That is a mind opening thought process. What would I have to do in order to have that? I am reframing my adversity. I am saying that I'm capable, and I might go, well, I know that seems hard, but I've done X, Y, and Z. If you need to make a list on your phone of all of the things that you've overcome, well, I know that this seems hard. I know that my boss is tough. I know that this feels like I could never do this, return this, create this, but I've done X, Y, and Z. If I can do that, I can do this. Or sometimes you have to like tag on to others. If they can do it, I can do it. Like maybe it does seem out of reach for you. So you go, you know what? If that Yahoo over there can do it, I can do it. I don't know. Sometimes I see Yahoos, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, if they could do it, I can do it. You know, I'm pretty resourced. If they can do it, I can do it. Maybe you need to look at some Yahoos and go, if they can do it, I can do it. Or you see somebody that's like, they seem so just way up there, and you're like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. Because most of the people that if they can do it, you can do it, have stories where they overcame, have stories where they struggled, have stories where they never should have been able to do whatever it is, and somehow they dug into their resilient capacity. They were dug into their potential and expanded their capacity. You want that, right? You want to dig into your potential and expand your capacity. Well, friend, you have to shift your perspective. You have to begin to create. You have to think about this like, I must create this narrative of strength and empowerment. It is the only option. I must do it. You must. We must do it together. If I want to have what I want to have in my life and you want to have what you want to have, and if we're going to run the same direction, bestie, then guess what? We must shift our perspective. Now, this may be no surprise to you, because this thing in particular is a huge buffer for lots of issues in people's lives. If we want to be resilient, we also have to have a larger sense of meaning or purpose in your life. And I really believe personally that creating meaning and purpose in our life comes from serving others. Now, that's my personal perspective. I'm pretty sure I can find research to support it, but that's my personal perspective how we get that. Whether that's I'm serving my spouse, I'm serving my children, I'm serving my faith in some capacity, I am serving clients, whatever it is, the things that bring me the most joy, the things that expand my internal abilities and capabilities are where I am operating with meaning and purpose. So if you're like, I freaking don't have that. I'm living selfish. I'm living isolated. My whole life is about me. I'm not judging you. But it's time for you to find meaning. It's time for you to find purpose. And the only way that you find it, by the way, is you go look for it. You start to serve. Where could you do that? Where again, you can start with your own attitude in your own home, or you can go to a soup kitchen. I doesn't matter to me, but maybe you need to start with your own attitude and really see what you do in your home as service. Maybe you go the extra mile at work and you really begin to find meaning and purpose in how you do that. You need to also, if you want to expand this resilient capacity internally, you focus on small wins. As you take these steps, as you take actionable steps towards your goal, as you achieve small wins, and I'm going to just use weight for an example, no one get hung up on this. Let's say you want to lose 50 pounds and you celebrate every pound. You mark 5, you mark 10, you mark 25, whatever, like you start to celebrate these small wins. What it tells your brain is to do more of it. Now, if you're like, oh, I've only lost 1 pound, I've only, I only got one sale this week, your brain's like, well, that didn't really do anything. In fact, it seemed to create more negative. Let's not do that. That's what your unconscious mind is going to do. So, friend, if you want to be resilient, if you want to continue to expand this capacity, you must celebrate small wins. And when you do this, what it does is it reinforces your belief in your ability to handle challenges. It reinforces your belief in yourself that you can do it. Whatever it is, it reinforces that. Now, I think about in my world and the literature and things that I read, I've come across this quote multiple times by Gendlin, and it says, "Nothing bad is ever the last step." Well, internally, we need to remember that nothing bad is ever the last step. I guess unless you're no longer here. But nothing bad is ever the last step. If today feels really awful, if me and my husband got in a big fight, well, nothing bad is ever the last step. I can create more. I can do something. I can shift that. You need to refuse to go back to the familiar. It's what we do. Again, since I guess I was talking about weight, think about comfort eating. You go back to the familiar where it's like, oh, well, that doesn't feel good to me, so I'm just going to X, Y, and Z. You have to refuse to go back to the familiar. You've similar to celebrating wins is you need to stay in and focus on the good. I want you to think about savoring. Have you ever had, I'm a foodie, so foodies unite. All right, I'm a foodie. Have you ever had food and it was like whatever the taste is, you're like closing your eyes, you're savoring the taste, you're almost wishing maybe that it could last forever, for hours, for whatever, a few more minutes, that the taste of whatever it is so good. Well, if you want to expand your resilient capacity, you have to savor the good in your life. Now, from an outward perspective, that looks like gratitude and awe, things that you're thankful for. When I don't know if you've ever gone out in nature and it's just like, wow, whatever you're looking at is just so beautiful. Stay in that, savor it. That's an outward savor. And an inward savor is pride and physical pleasure. Have you ever done something and you're like, man, I'm a freaking bad mamma jamma. Can't believe I did that. I did. I am amazing. And then, maybe if you got some baggage going on, you don't feel like you can claim how amazing you are. But savoring that pride, drinking it in, staying in it, savoring it, that expands your resilient capacity. Why? Because positive feelings beget more positive. You get more positive when you stay in the positive. Who knew? You get more when you stay in it. Savor your life. Again, I want you to hear me. Resilient people have the same negative amount of negative emotions as anybody else. They just have greater access to the positive. If you want to increase your access to the positive, you must stay in and focus on the good, on the positive. Gratitude, awe, pride, physical pleasure. Stay in it. Similar and different to really having meaning and purpose in your life is it's important to focus on your dreams. You in order to expand your resilient capacity, you've got to turn this desire online that there is something more for you, more than whatever it is right now. There's more. And if you really struggle with this, reach out to me. I've got tools that can help you, but you have got to turn on your desire for what's in front of you, for what can be in front of you. And you may not be able to get the full picture, but you're like, I know there's more. I know that I can have better relationships. I know that I can have a deeper relationship with God. I know that I can make more money. I know that my family can be better. I know, whatever it is that you know, whatever it is that is deep within you, you have got to tap into that desire. It will make you more resilient, but it'll also help you have more of what you want to have, friend. I hope that you can hear in my voice how excited I am about this topic because you can be resilient. I can be resilient. I am resilient. I hope that right now with me, you are saying to yourself, I am resilient. And that you start to implement some of these strategies to gain more resilience in your life. So just to recap my thoughts here, our conversation together. Resilience is not about avoiding difficulties. It's not about not having negative emotions. It is about embracing the strength from within to face and grow from them. It's about digging in to find that positive within you. When you recognize and you cultivate the resilience that really resides within you, it takes up residence in your body. You can navigate life's challenges with greater ease and emerge stronger. Do you not want that? I know you want that, right? So, as per my usual, my always, I have some questions that I really want you to think through. First, when have I demonstrated resilience in my life? And what did I learn from that experience? Two, what supportive relationships can I lean on to bolster my resilience? How can I, three, how can I focus on more of the good, more of the positive in times of adversity? 4, how does my current outlook contribute to my sense of inner strength? And 5, which of the tools that were mentioned do I need to commit to myself to do today, right now, this week? Friend, I want to hear your answers. Come find me on social media. Come talk to me. Come tell me about what you're getting out of this. I want to know. Best friend, I really want you to remember that what lies within you is a wellspring of strength. Trust in your resilience that was God given to you. Embrace your journey and know deep within you that you have the capacity to overcome and to flourish. Best friend, thanks for being with me. Until next week.